Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking ghost stories, and is this something that I talk about a lot on my channel? No, but I'd like it to be something that we talk about going forward, because Ben and I have had so many ghost excursions or experiences. We do kind of tend to seek them out a little bit, tours and whatnot, but that was before filming everything. So now I film things, we need to go and investigate some stuff. I say investigate like I'm official. No. I just enjoy it, and disclaimer, I enjoy it with a healthy sense of boundaries. So like protecting my energy before I go, not intending to summon demons or anything. I don't want to be playing with any Ouija boards. Done that once. Maybe I should talk about that one day. I don't know. Let me know what you want, but basically we enjoy ghost hunting, and we enjoy history really, and stories, other people's stories. So I'm gonna do this in hopefully order of appearance. But if I don't, bear with me and you won't know any difference anyway. So I do just want to talk about my own personal experiences, and whether you believe in it or not, that's totally up to you. Whether you have experienced something or not, I'd love to hear about it, so let me know. But yeah, subscribe if you want to see more of our ghost adventures coming up. But you can find one already. The Monte Cristo house is already up. Okay, so the first ghost encounter that I remember would have to be when I was staying at a friend's place. I would say almost an hour outside of my hometown. This particular area that I was staying for the night was in the bush up one of this, well, at the base of one of the scarier mountains in the area. There's a set of 3 mountains and they're called Brothers, and this one particular one was a little bit craggy at the top, kind of folded over a little bit, stuck out, rockier, right? And it always gave me not like a scary, creepy feeling, but I guess it is ominous feeling when we would drive past or anything like that. But actually staying in my friend's parents' house and near an old railway line, just an area where there would have been a lot of history. My hometown was an old penal settlement, so like a jail, a mental asylum, was all there when the convicts were shifted from Sydney up to yeah, my hometown on the east coast of Australia. So it does have a big sense of history, and I used to actually have nightmares about, there's a headland overlooking the beach, and I used to have nightmares about these end of world creatures coming out of like a concrete plaque in the ground, and it was a recurring nightmare for years. That's a sidetrack, but I don't know what that was about. These creatures would come out and take over the town, and God knows what happened. I don't remember the rest of it, but I just know every time I see that plaque, I'm like, that's where the gremlins come out. Like, it's bad. So we were staying in this place, and I don't want to name names because I don't want to like put anyone out. So yeah, I was a teenager and I stayed overnight. We were on bunk beds, and she was on the top and I was on the bottom, and she was telling me all sorts of little stories throughout the day, like, oh yeah, you know, this used to be a sergeant's area. Sergeants or soldiers or the Englishmen that were in coats, essentially, that were entrusted to look after the convicts and claim new lands and whatever. I'm not going to get into that kind of side of things, but she said there might be an Aboriginal burial ground here, and there might have been some kind of conflict go on, and that alone was heartbreaking for me. But also like both sides, you know, there's stories there. So she said, if you do see anything tonight, don't stress out. Don't freak out, but you know, my house is haunted and so is this whole area. And yeah, What did I see when I rolled over in the middle of the night? A little girl standing against the wall. The little girl was in like a white nightgown kind of thing. I saw a man in a coat, navy and red and white and black coat and suit kind of situation, and another lady in white. So it was 3 different things going on, and I was like, dude, do you see what's going on here? And she's like, oh, that's just such and such. And her nonchalance about the whole thing and my first experience, I kind of like rubbed my eyes a little bit. I thought, okay, she did warn me, never mind, they're not going to hurt me. My heart probably pounded a little bit, but I rolled over and went back to sleep. So yeah, that was my first ghost encounter. Didn't feel too much, I don't think, and that was a lot to see at once. So fast forward many years, and Ben and I are looking for property in another area west of where we had both grown up. So it was west, it was not technically over a mountain range, but it was getting into like more mountainous area. A bunch of land had just been cleared, lotted out, and you could see the white pegs of the boundary lines for each property, and they were properties that were along a dirt road, very bushy still, but partly cleared. And we're driving along and just talking about how awesome it would be to live out there. We're talking away, and then I just went quiet and stopped answering Ben for a second, and I was like, wait, did you see that? Did you see that guy? And he's like, no, you're seeing things, and just kept talking. And and then I was like, okay, that was weird. And then we turned the car around to go back up the road, and then I just a flash saw his wife. That's the best way I can describe it. I saw this man, and then I saw his wife. He was at that end, we turned the car around, and she was at that end, and they were both just flashes. But I looked and I was like, and her, and then she was gone by the time I said it. And then I turned back around, the man wasn't there either. So 2 little flashes. This man, this woman, they were dressed in very pioneer looking outfits, would be the best way for me to describe it. So brown and like dirty cream, like they look like working people working the land. She was in a dress, and he was in like brown pants and a dirty cream button up long sleeve kind of t-shirt. That was it. I just saw these 2 people, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if they want us to move out here. And we never did, so that's fine. But it was very odd. And Ben, I told him about different things that I could sense. I'm an empath, so I can sense different things. Sometimes I would say something about someone, and then that person would ring, or I would say that someone felt a certain way, and he'd be like, no, that's not actually how it is at all. And then they would say something to us the next time we saw them that basically confirmed that I was right. So not psychic, but I can, well, maybe like clairsentient, so I can feel other people's emotions for sure, but maybe I can feel them also just slightly ahead of time, or while they are happening in a different location. So even if I'm not near the person, I might be able to sense in a feeling sense that they have done something or said something or something has happened. Okay, so then we started to want to investigate different things. And we decided to start going on ghost tours whenever we got the chance. So we did things like the Maitland Jail in a place called Newcastle, and we actually explored that with an ex-inmate, an ex-con, I guess you would say. That was fascinating, and there was lots of different little things happening in there that, again, I could feel, and it was like, whew. Oh, I'm getting the feelings now. Yeah, that's still open to the public, I believe. So yeah, if anyone's in New South Wales, near Newcastle, near Sydney, go and have a look at that, Maitland Jail. We also did Alcatraz in San Fran, and that was amazing. I really rate Alcatraz for the story as well, but absolutely terrifying how cold and lonely, and yeah, some of the criminals in there, I mean, they deserve to be in there for sure. But put the headphones on and listen to that. Didn't see anything there that I know of. Sometimes you can see things and it will look like real life. It will look like present day, modern day happening right there, right now, but you will just kind of miss it. Anyone felt that? One of the scariest things we have ever done is we went, it may have been Halloween, and it may have even been a full moon Halloween. I think it was, because they made a big fanfare about it, but we went to the Q station in Manly in Sydney, which is on like one of the headlands. And anyone who knows Sydney, it has a big, like, it obviously has a big harbour, but it has like a big wild entry point to that harbour, and then the ocean is just crashing onto these massive rocks and these massive headlands. And Manly and the Q station, which stands for quarantine station, is situated on top of one of those heads. And we also went to a military kind of base, bunker base area there, but they're like gun cannons, like big concrete cutout and carved into and molded around the rocks and the headlands, these massive headlands, these massive cliffs, basically. Lots of tunnels and concrete cannon hole things with big cannon blasters at the top, but also like they would come out of the cliff face and shoot whoever was coming at them. And Australia needed that kind of protection. That's such a horrible thing to say, but facts, right? Australia needed that kind of protection during World War II, because Japan and the Japanese subs were coming at us from all angles and lots of things were happening. My part of my family actually rescued some people just with their fishing trawler. They rescued some people on a supply ship that was bombed by the Japanese, by a Japanese sub, just off the coast of a place called Point Plummer, Crescent Head area. So yeah, that's like a story that goes down in our family history, but like that's 4 hours from Sydney. Sydney definitely needed that kind of protection. As violent as that is to talk about, but you know, history. So yeah, there was also like this area with lots of tunnels. We did that. I think we did both sets of these areas, the Q station and this bunker thing, on the same weekend. And those tunnels that these guys would have been running through, and it would have been full of ammunition and stuff like that, terrifying. It just was creepy AF. Like, but go, because it's very, very, very interesting. But go to the quarantine station if you are up for that. People get married there. Yeah, it was. We took one of our friends as well, who is Jester. He's an absolute jester, and he is the biggest skeptic ever. And we took him and his girlfriend, and he was just like, oh, and joking about and kind of like trying to scare us and being silly about the whole thing the whole time. But we went with a small group of people and a tour guide through the whole quarantine station. Okay, so it starts off with like they put you in this shipping container kind of building, and they lock you in there in the dark, and you're just standing in there and you're like, what is going on? And then they open this like little window thing at the side, and they're like, do you like being in here? This is where they would put people when they would come on the fleets, the ships from the UK, where the criminals were overflowing and bringing everyone to Australia. But a lot of people were getting the Spanish influenza, so on these fleets, so they would bring them in and they would land at the quarantine station and actually just like pull it, like making anchor, just pulling in to the quarantine station was life or death in itself. And you can imagine they've come all this way across the ocean, and then they get like smashed against the rocks in bad weather, which would happen a lot. So there's lots of shipwrecks there. That alone is creepy. Anyone into maritime hauntings, that's also a thing. But they would bring these people, and because someone had a cough or someone had symptoms that looked like influenza, they would lock everyone in this dark box and just heat everyone up, basically. And what happens when you have a hot, steamy shower, when you have a cough or a flu, you're kind of going to start coughing a little bit more. You're going to start like clearing your throat. And anyone who was showing any signs of this influenza cough or runny nose or anything like that, like, just imagine how strict these places were. And I haven't even got to the worst part, but yeah, they would lock people in there, and then everyone would start coughing and clearing their throat, and they'd be like, right, you've got to stay, you've got to stay, you've got to stay. And so whole shiploads of people were staying, and this box was terrifying. But you know, you could feel your hairs on your arms kind of in the back of your neck just standing on end, just being in there. They get us out of there. They take us to this room where there's this great big turbine that was like a heating thing. So they probably would have been shoveling coal or something to make this thing turn around. Don't exactly remember the building parts, but I remember what happened in there. They sit us down on like a concrete slab, like a step down into the room, and you sit in the room and you put your hands out like this. And apparently this is where the children came to play a lot, because it was the warmest spot. It was nice and dry. So if the weather was getting crazy, and they're, remember, on a cliff face here, so it would have been windy as hell. And these kids are meant to run along and like lightly play with your fingers. If they like you, they're going to touch you. And Ben and I are sitting there like knees up, hands out. And he was like, oh. And here I am expecting something to happen to me. And he's like, oh. And he's like, they're not touching my hands. They're touching my knees. And I was just like, oh, by this point. So hands are down. And I was just like, what? Tell me more. Oh. And our friend George is having a little heart attack over here. Just being like, oh, you're just making that up. It's just dust. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so Ben was starting to be like, okay, this is legit. And then another part of the building, another part of this set of buildings, this station, includes, I can't believe people get married here. It just it freaks me out. But I'm all for like disrupting the idea of marriage and the way things are meant to be done. So totally, I totally respect you and salute you, but I just couldn't do it. There's this room, there's this big like function center room, almost like a Queenslander style building. And so you've got like all this room underneath that's like built up on the earth, because it's on the edge of a cliff like this one particular function space. And the cliff apparently is full of graves that have been moved. Yeah. Now, imagine all the water that would be running down that over the years, and how horrible that would have been. But they wanted to expand the buildings, and apparently the gravestones, no, there were no gravestones. Apparently, I don't know, it was starting to smell, or something was starting to shift. The earth was moving, and fragments maybe had come up, and they needed to replace them. They didn't replace them very well, because I think they put them like right next to that section, but still on a slope. So yeah. But this area, this building, is a big function room. There's chairs and tables stacked up in one end, wooden chairs and tables, a wooden creaky floor. The whole building is wooden, maybe a tin roof. And first of all, the tour guide kind of takes us through with the group. Let's say there's like 6 people all together. She's like, okay, in here, this is where there's a little boy. He's going to mess with your electronics. He might drain your battery. He might do all sorts of things, but he's also going to like make noise and footsteps over in that corner. If you talk to him, he might come over. He might push a chair around. So we're like, cool, that's neat. Okay, go kid. And then we go down into like this kitchen area that provides meals for the functions and events that still happen in this building. And we go down, and there's this like big chute thing, weird like food trolley elevator chute thing. They're called a dumbwaiter, apparently. Dumbwaiter. So terrifying name, actually. I was like, anyway, you like stick your head into this big chute thing. Darkness, right? total darkness, and you've got like the tour guide's got a torch. I don't think we even had a torch, but it was a full moon, but in there it was dark. And yeah, apparently there's rustling or noises that come out of that, and there's a great big oven, like scary old oven. There might have even been like some I don't know, like a pizza oven, but it wasn't a pizza oven, like a big kind of there's a fire going in there kind of thing. Yeah, all these different little sections, cupboards, lots and lots of doors, very cold, tin, stainless steel, like just not a nice, lots of concrete, lots of wooden creaky things. It was not a nice feeling at all. I couldn't stand being in there. I was getting claustrophobic, even though it wasn't that small of a kitchen. I was just like, it was freezing. Yeah, it just was not a good feeling. And I was like, I need to get out of here. People were saying, oh, I think I just saw the door move, or did you hear that when someone was talking? And I didn't hear it or see anything like that, but I definitely felt I don't want to be down here anymore. So then the tour guide and all the people kind of move out of that building completely. And Ben and I are like, no, we want to have a chat to this little boy. Like, let's see if we can get something to happen. And we're up there and we're taking photos and just doing all sorts of things and wandering around. And then next minute Ben's like, what? He's like, the camera battery has just drained completely. And as he said that, he went to look at his phone. He pulled his phone out of his pocket and he's like, my phone battery is like 5% and it was on 50. So yeah, definitely some weird electronic stuff going on there. And pretty sure we were having a chat to him because he was like moving chairs around and stuff. Not a lot, just like, and we were like, oh, this is cool. And you know, he probably meant no harm, and we were saying, we mean no harm to you. We just want to say hi and we hope you're okay and having fun here. And yeah, we didn't get too in depth. We're not going to be like, are you trapped? Do you want us to save you? Nothing like that. So I thought that was quite kind of cool. And then there's a lot to this. Then we went to like a hospital part of this station, and the weirdest thing happened. The hospital alone was terrifying. Like steel beds, steel everything, like white floors, white walls, but like dirty white, lots of windows around. And we're sitting there in this creepy feeling, like all that green enamel that they used to use for dishes and stuff like that, and utensils and stuff. They had it set up quite well, but very, very creepily. But the weirdest thing was, we're all sitting there on beds and whatnot, or just standing around because no one wanted to sit on the beds, to be frank with you. But we're listening to the tour guide explain what would happen in here and some of the stories that would happen. And then we heard footsteps on the veranda outside. So on the like wraparound veranda, goes right around this hospital. And then someone walked across the window, a full-on normal-looking figure just walked across. We thought it was a woman, and she's like, "Oh, we're waiting for someone else. Okay, I'll just stop for a second and wait till she comes in." And we're sitting there for like 2 minutes, and then she's like, "No one came in. Like, you had to walk past that window and then walk along this side of the wall and come into the door this way. And no one came in." She's like, "Just give me a minute." And she went outside, and we're all up against the glass in the hospital being, what's going on here? And she's like calling out, "Hello, hello." And there was no one there. There was no one out there. And some of us went out there and had a look, and it's just darkness, moonlight, very freaky kind of night, and just it kind of goes into nothing and then drops down a cliff face. So with bush on this side. So this person was making perfectly normal walking sounds and looked perfectly normal walking past, but vanished, because you would have to jump over the railing to get off the veranda and then into the ether, into nowhere. And so she didn't even come around this kind of U shape of the veranda. It was so weird. So this person just appeared and disappeared, and no one in the group knew who that person was. That wasn't their partner, that wasn't their friend. Like, no one really remembered there was another person in the group at all. So that happened. And then walking to all the other areas, there's so many areas. There's a morgue. It was terrifying. I'm pretty sure they had like a K2 kind of reader where the light goes on and off if there's a spirit nearby. It was going on and off, like it goes green, yellow, orange, red kind of thing. And they had that on the bed where a lot of autopsies and things would have been done, and there's a big drain underneath, and it was a very, very creepy little building. And like right in the walkway, kind of dead center of this whole station, this whole big collection of buildings, and there's a morgue right there. So here's the function center that people still use, and then there's a morgue like across the pathway. So yeah, so super terrifying in there. Walking through like the rest of the area, we're walking through this very dark, overgrown, bushy pathway to get to the rest of the buildings and the outposts that we wanted to see. And I was like, okay, the bushes are kind of sparkling a little bit, maybe they've got like fairy lights or something going on here. And we're walking along and I'm just like, oh, this is a little strange. Okay, I feel like I'm being watched. But I just kept walking. At that point, our little group was all having a joke and a chat. And then the tour guide said, there's often min lights seen in the bushes here. And I was like, oh! Because min lights are like an Aboriginal folklore, an unexplained light phenomenon. Usually seen in the outback, but hey, we were in the bush on a cliff in a very prominent area of Australia. Yeah, and they like sparkle. I guess they're a spiritual kind of thing. It's a warning sometimes. It can be a comfort sometimes. Sometimes they apparently chase you. I've seen them several times. So not to be mistaken for fireflies, but yeah, did see some kind of sparkling in the bushes. Felt like I was being watched. Didn't feel entirely safe. But you know, whenever I feel like that, I do tend to just be like, I think to myself, to them, I'm not here to harm you. I'm just walking through, all respect to you, you know. I just kind of put out loving thoughts, and I'm always fine. Okay, so the biggest part, the scariest thing that happened in this quarantine station was in a shower block, and it was the final stop, and I was well and truly ready to run out of there as fast as I could. We get into this block and we meet up with another tour group. So there would have been about 12 of us in there. Oh my God. There would have been like 12 of us in there at that point. And at this point, our tour lady kind of went outside or whatever. And there was a man there explaining what would go on in this shower block. Sounds very normal, but they were shower blocks where, and it was a huge room, and it was like lined with showers with doors where there was a shower in here and then there was a portal in here. So people would stand, like guards would stand here and watch these poor people who had just come all this way from across the seas and exhibiting signs of being ill. They would strip them naked, put them in these showers, and they would acid shower them until their skin would peel off. And you were not allowed to come out of that shower until a layer of skin had come off your body. Terrifying. Like, this video should come with a warning. It's absolutely terrifying. I was like, what? And as this person is saying this, I get a very sick, sinking, kind of feeling. And I'm standing almost to the back of the group because I was scared. So I'm right at the back of the group. Everyone's like up in the space of these shower blocks, like trying to get a look. And I'm feeling like, whoa, like something feels like it's right on top of me, but it's starting to go like this, like all around me. It was very ominous, heavy, dark, bad energy feeling. And then my eyesight kind of like pulled me in this direction. Like, I don't know if you've ever felt something watching you to a degree where you're like, oh my God, what am I about to see? But I did. I turned around and there was a man standing on kind of this end of the group, but there was this giant, like 7-foot figure, humongous figure, practically standing inside this man. So standing like right on the edge of him, in part of his body was this giant black figure. And I just went, oh my, like my ears just went weird. I can feel it now. Like I just went, oh my God, Ben, do you see that? And he was engrossed in listening, and he's like, what? And he looks over and he's like, oh my gosh, do you see that too? Do you see that? Oh my God, do you see that? And then everyone started to kind of turn around, and I'm just like, we've got to go. I needed to get away from that thing so badly. When everyone started moving around, it was gone, but the feeling stayed. And Ben walked around all these shower blocks looking for this fella, and I'm like, we need to bail. So I let him go. I ran out of that building so fast, and that was the scariest feeling, the scariest thing I have ever seen. And I really just like shake that off. I do not want that anywhere near me. I don't want anything to follow me home. And yeah, that was the Q station. Terrifying. Do I recommend it? Yes, but also no. We also did like a Sydney Rocks. Just Google it. It's an area of Sydney that's very like historical, was for lots of ships and goings on. Anyway, and that's where the harbour bridge starts as it goes across the harbour. And we did a little tour, which was absolutely fantastic for its like drama factor. The guy dresses up in a big trench coat and a hat, and he carries a big stick and just takes you on like all these little corridors and corners and alleyways, and inside a little house, inside a basement of a very modern building, there's a little secret door, and you go down and there's a whole area where apparently you stand there, and if you take a photo against that wall, you're going to see stuff in the photo. We didn't see anything. You never know, I might look again one day and there might be something there. We talked about how the Sydney Harbour Bridge was built and how so many lives were lost, and how there's a ghost of a certain guy that apparently is a real jester, who, fell into the pylon, I guess, the big concrete slab on that side of the bridge that they were making, and fell to his death, I guess, or sank into the concrete to his death. Terrifying. And yeah, it was just lots of little fun things, some super creepy moments, but also quite lighthearted and cool. But the next experience that I actually want to go into in a little bit more detail is I was staying at someone close to me's home, and it was a new build home, a big home, lots of bedrooms, like a whole wing for like guest rooms, guest bathroom, and then a long hallway, and it was a beautiful home. It still is a beautiful home. But I stayed there with some family members, right? And I was very excited to be there, but I was also very tired from the trip driving. And I went to bed early while other people were still up in the house. So it was still noise and normal things going on in the house. I would have been asleep maybe an hour, and I had the door closed. I was in a room by myself in a double bed, had the door closed, and I woke up and I was like, what? Like, why is the cat walking over my pillow and like stepping on my head? And I'm like, what the hell? Like, enough for me to wake up and turn around to see that the door was still closed. There's no way there was a cat in the room. And I was like, instantly got a sinking feeling, and I just laid there flat for a minute, and I became so ice cold that even though I was laying on the bed, it felt like someone was touching my back with like ice hands just like touching my back. And so for some reason, I'm getting chills down my spine just thinking of it. But for some reason, I'm laying there flat going, oh my God, like what the hell just happened? It actually felt like footprints of something on my pillow enough to wake me up. And So I'm laying there thinking about that, thinking about the door being closed, thinking how am I going to make my escape, and just out of nowhere, feeling the ice cold on my back and freaking out about that, I just sit bolt upright, like bolt upright in bed, and I scared myself. I'm sitting there like, what just happened? And I just snapped out of it, opened the door, bolted out into the lounge room, and just started screaming like, oh my God, what's going on, la la la. And they're like, oh, nothing, oh, but we're ready to go to bed. And they just kind of had shady looks on their faces. I didn't know if they were joking or I didn't know if they were scared. A big part of me knew they were scared, but I wanted to think at the time that they were joking. So we all went to bed in the same bed and no one slept. There's 3 of us, fully grown women in one bed, and all of us were like, yeah, good night. And no one moved. It was a different room. It felt cold in there. We kept a hallway light on, but I just kept looking at that hallway and thinking something is there, something's in that hallway, something's staring at me, something doesn't want me here. It's just a bad feeling, and did not sleep a wink. It was later on that the homeowner actually told me so many things that happen in that house, and it's a new build house. It's big. It's in an area again of Australia that is riddled with history. Like you've got gorges and mountains and bushland and arid, dry parts of, and just incredible countryside. It's like where Ned Kelly kind of grew up and roamed about. There's all sorts of history and stories, and again, jails, asylums, lots of settlement and growth happened there. Big train lines, a lot of connections. So you never know. It may again be a burial ground, and that's like white man history. You also have Aboriginal history, which is thousands and thousands of years old, and anything could be possible at any spot, anywhere in Australia. And so much of Australia is undiscovered and uninhabited, and there's so much more to learn and to discover. So yeah, lots of little things have happened in that house since visiting that. Pictures have turned around, lights have turned on and off, cats and dogs have been scared, but that was definitely a feeling that I'll never forget. And turning up there with Ben, we stayed there as well one time. He felt the same way. He was like, oh, this is creepy. Like something is like protecting the people that live here, but it's not sure about us. It doesn't really want us here. And yeah, we tried everything. We saged the place, we spoke to them. But yeah, the people that live there are fine, and they live in perfect harmony with these spirits, and they're very aware of them. And in fact, there's spirits around them all the time. And they're very protected by guardian angels and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it's fine. But these are just a couple of stories that have happened. Ben has his own set of stories, actually. He lived in a very haunted house as a 20-something-year-old, and lots of things happened in that house, not just to him when he was living there, but to different people that have lived there since. As you know, we are friends with a lot of people in that community, and they're like, yeah, what about this and what about this? And yeah, there's a lot of things that have happened, and I love sharing these stories. I would have loved to have done this video like fireside with you, and go, you know, once upon a time this happened. But I do want to do some more exploring in this sense, and as much as I am into my spiritual love and light, I do really find this fun, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that if you keep yourself safe and you're doing no harm. I'm not going out there and buying Dibbit boxes or anything like that. I'm not using Ouija boards, but I do enjoy this, and I would love to get myself a K2 or a spirit box or something like that. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, if anyone wants to see more of this, just like have that chat down below. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and it's a long one. Sorry about that, but I will talk to you in my next video. Bye everyone.